Welcome to the Tesseract Podcast, where we unlock your power to innovate. I'm Chloe.
And I'm Dan, and we're your co-hosts. Our mission is to empower airmen, connect them to resources, and accelerate change across the Air Force logistics enterprise.
Specifically, our team works as an innovation accelerator assigned to the Air Staff Logistics Directorate, where we partner with Airmen to operationalize the new sustainment strategy. Today on the show, we're honored to welcome Ms. Kim Brown, the Deputy Director of Logistics, Deputy Chief of Staff of Logistics, Engineering, and Force Protection at Headquarters U.S. Air Force. With a distinguished career spanning nearly 4 decades, Ms. Brown plays a pivotal role in shaping logistics, maintenance, engineering, and force protection strategies that support more than 200,000 logisticians across the globe. From leading transformation initiatives to modernizing logistics systems and policies, her expertise ensures our Air Force remains mission-ready and agile. Along the way, Ms. Brown's leadership journey has taken her from Fort Bragg to the Pentagon, with key roles at Warner Robins, in Iceland, and at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, to name a few. Ms. Brown, welcome to the podcast today.
Good morning. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Good morning, ma'am. I know we just said a lot about your bio and a little intro, but would love if you could just share a little bit about your career from your perspective and your current role and what led you to that role.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. First of all, let me thank you for asking me to do this and giving me the opportunity to speak. I know that you all have been doing this for a bit of time, and I've watched several of the podcasts, and it's so interesting to me to hear different perspectives and hear the perspectives of our senior leaders and even some of the folks that we interview that are not senior leaders. And so I do appreciate the opportunity to share today. It truly is an honor. So as you mentioned, I am currently the Deputy Director of Logistics, but you brought back a lot of memories just now when you started mentioning those places. So I'll start by talking a little bit about my journey to get here, and then I'll go into more of what it is that I do as the Deputy Director. So as you mentioned, I have knocking on 4 decades. Boy, okay. Makes me feel really old. But anyway, it has been an incredible journey. I am one of the few folks that are career civilians. A lot of the people that we work with have some type of a hybrid of military time and civilian time. And so I did start at a very young age. I think I was 19 or 20 when I started on this journey. And I did start at Fort Bragg. It was kind of a fluke. I was at the school department there. I didn't have my college education or anything done, and I was married to military, moved to North Carolina, just almost out of high school, basically. And they had a program where, you know how you have substitute teachers? And so they had a program where you could come in and sub if they needed help. And so I was actually a payroll clerk. And then it just worked out that they brought me on civil service, and that was the beginning of my career. So did a lot of different types of jobs because, as I mentioned, I was married to military. And so I went from North Carolina to Iceland, did a little bit of work for a short time with the Navy there, but it was mostly administrative type of work. As I said, I started as a payroll clerk and then went from Iceland to upstate New York, where Griffiths Air Force Base was. It's since realigned. There's still a DFAS, Defense Operating location there, DFAS op block there. And I worked there for a short period as well and at the lab there. And then being married to military, we moved again. And so I ended up in Georgia, and that is where my husband retired. And I got into a training program there. And it just happened to be an item manager training program. So that was in the 2000 time frame is about when I started in the logistics career field. And that was really where I started to gain momentum because we weren't moving all of the time. And in the meantime of that, I started going to school back when I was in upstate New York, finished my degree when I was in Georgia. And so but that's where I fell in love with logistics. I was an item manager in C-130s. I was the prop, they call them the prop queen, the prop item manager. I did that for a few years, finished my education. And then my husband retired there, and we were presented the opportunity to move to Wright-Patterson to work on the infamous four-letter word that nobody wants to talk about, ECSS, as subject matter experts in the supply chain career field, because my husband was a retired supply person as well. And so we ended up at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and that really is where I launched. I finished my master's there, and then went on to work for the Air Force GLSC at the time. Global Logistics Sustainment Center, I think, is what the name of what that stood for. And then I became a division chief there. That was where I spent probably about 14 years there. And I was the logistics IT portfolio manager, so at the headquarters there at AFMC. And so I did quite a few, about 4 years there. And then I was asked to come to the Pentagon. And interestingly enough, I didn't think my husband was ever going to let me come to the Pentagon or want to come to the Pentagon. He said, well, I'll do 3 years. So not a city guy, right? And so we kept our house in Dayton and then came up to be the tech director here in A4L. And working for, at the time, Major General Linda Hurry, now Lieutenant General Linda Hurry. And I was her tech director. And Mr. Beatty, who is now our deputy A4, was in my current role as the deputy for A4L. And he took the A4P position, which is a tier 2 equivalent. And so he fleeted up. And so General Hurry actually at the time detailed me into the deputy position. And then I competed for the position. I'd like to tell you that I had on my plan when I started civil service all those years ago, but I do not. And being an SCS really was not. I don't think I knew what an SCS was there for quite a while. But I will tell you, talking about my current role now, the crown jewel of my entire career has been working here in the Pentagon for a number of reasons. The position is, a lot of people don't want to come to the Pentagon, but I think it's people that may not necessarily have ever come to the Pentagon that say that, because I will tell you, it's been my favorite assignment. Just being able to, a lot of people think, well, you're at the Pentagon, you're so far away from the field, you're as far away from the flight line as you can get. But my goodness, the impact that you can have on that flight line in some of these positions up here, whether it's, we're obviously responsible for organize, train, and equip of our airmen. A lot of people don't realize, you mentioned 200,000 loggies. Do you know that's about a third of the Air Force population? We're about a third. And so to realize that you have an impact, and we have a very small team, but it's a lethal team. I mean, we get the very best of the best here in A4L, and I've worked with some of the sharpest minds, whether it was on the military side or the civilian side. Such passion. And I know we're going to talk about the Tesseract team a little bit more later on, so I won't go into a lot of detail there, but just the opportunity to impact the lives of our airmen. And when General Hurry was here, when I was at the AFMC, we would talk about the war fighter, but when I got here, it kind of shifted my mentality a bit to think about airmen. And when I say airmen, it's not just airmen as in blue suiters and people turning wrenches on the flight line, but it's also those civilians that are working in our depots. They're great patriotic airmen working every single day to launch and to keep us flying, keep us in the air, and to make us that lethal force that we're destined to be. So I think that gives you an idea, at least. That was a long-winded answer. It felt like a long-winded answer, but
no, man, that was great. I love the focus on the end too, on the, like, truly, when you say big airmen a lot, I think, and we were kind of referenced that as we throw it around, right? But I think that sheds some light on like what that truly means, across the force. Is there is a huge civilian population that supports the readiness of our enterprise.
Right. And, being married to military, I've been around airmen, even when I worked for the Navy, and I've been that wife with a little kid at the airport or on the flight line as they were loading my spouse up to deploy. And so there's just so many people that give to our Air Force, whether it's the wives and the families and the sacrifices. And that's why I am so passionate about what we do, because we get the best of the best. And it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we take care of them and that we give them our best every single day. And I'll go into a little bit more of that throughout the podcast. So, okay, love that.
Yes, man. Yeah. And I couldn't agree more with you with the impact, the opportunity for impact here at the Pentagon, right? That was when I first got selected for Tesseract, they, I was a staff sergeant on the flight line, and everybody said, like, you're going to go to the Pentagon. They don't do anything there, right? Everybody's in offices and they're just pushing paperwork, just a big circle, they did. And I was like, yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I've been talking to people there, right? I've been working with Tesseract for a year now. I know what they're capable of, right? And I know what the impact that people in that building have on the stuff we do every day, right? To keep our aircraft in the air. And so I want to go see if I can be a part of that. And so, that's what excited me most about coming here was, I think, kind of something we share is the opportunity to have an impact on our Air Force.
Absolutely.
And so in your role as a Deputy Director of Logistics, Deputy Chief of Staff of Logistics, Engineering, Force Protection, continuous innovation is critical. Could you share a bit about A4L's strategic vision for fostering innovation within logistics and maintenance?
Certainly. So you mentioned Tesseract, and as I said, I would be talking about it. When I first got here, Tesseract had just stood up. I think I came in 21, and it had just stood up under General Hurry's leadership. And there were some folks that had gone away to some industry programs and came back. And so what I have found here in the building is that our senior leaders are very interested in innovation. I mentioned General Hurry, but I will tell you Major General King, as well as the current A4L, is completely passionate about innovation, because innovation at the end of the day is the way that you can make our airmen's lives better and richer. It's not just about retention necessarily, but it's giving them the tools. As a mom of a young lieutenant, not in the Air Force, so we'll go into too much of that. But as a mom of that lieutenant, I want him to have the best tools and to do his job. I want him to be, whether it's, protective gear or it's IT. And it's the same for our airmen. We want them to have what they need to be successful. And we in the Air Force, we've always been known for being on the cutting edge of all the services, whether it started with airplanes. The Space Force might be overtaking us, but they're still part of us, so it just doesn't really count. So but I will say that innovation was a priority of A4L leadership and continues to be a priority of A4L leadership because of the many reasons that you just outlined when you said you wanted to come here. It's giving them the tools, but it's also giving our airmen a voice. Because I will tell you, I've been in program offices, I've been at MAGCOMs and different organizations, but for our airmen, whether you're talking about the two-striper out on the flight line or sitting at the depot or wherever they may be, where they may be working, they're more apt to pick up the phone and call you than they are to call a program office or a MAGCOM, because whether, it's a network, people, that they went to basic training with somebody that is here on the Tesseract team, but we have such a reach with the Tesseract team, and it's airmen connecting with airmen. And I think at it's, lethal must be my word of the day, because it is a small but mighty and lethal team. It ranges anywhere from 16 to 20, depending on who you're counting as far as contractors and different things. But my goodness, the impact that Tesseract has had. And so from an A4L perspective, innovation is critical and it's important. And it's not just about log IT innovation. It's about continuous improvement. It's all the theory of constraints, all of the things that innovation brings to the fight is really important to make sure that we're giving our airmen the tools, that 200,000 plus airmen, the tools that they need to be successful. And if retention is a side benefit of that, that's absolutely great and wonderful. It is a challenge for us in a bureaucracy to field and scale sometimes innovation, but I think that we need to get better and we need to do better because the airmen, they deserve it.
Yes, ma'am. Yep, I couldn't agree more. As I talked about earlier, joining the team from the flightline was really focused on that opportunity for an impact, right? One of the biggest things that you hit on there that kind of caught my brain was the empowerment part, right? The empowering the airmen, giving airmen a voice. I can't tell you how often I hear from my peers, I didn't know as an NCO could do something like that, right? I didn't know an NCO could work at the Pentagon. I didn't know. I had a crew chief come up to me after LOA 2 years ago, after I was on stage for Ether Sprint, and said, "You said you were a C-17 crew chief. I'm a C-17 crew chief. I could be you. I could be on stage." And I was like, "That's it's like those. It's in those moments where we give our airmen a voice to get up on stage or get up in front of senior leaders and make a difference and put themselves out there. That all the long hours and all the late nights in the Pentagon and all the late nights at Andrews are all worth it, right? And that's kind of I guess I'm not trying to turn this conversation over to my experiences, right? But that's been a lot of...
Yeah, that's outstanding, because they do make a difference every single day out there on the flight line, whether it's a crew chief or whoever it is. But it's sometimes being able to have an even larger sphere of influence and be on that stage. They're the best of the best. And so I think affording the NCOs and others to have that opportunity is so important. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Something else, man, that kind of picked up from that was you started off by saying it really is personal. So this innovation culture and what we're striving to get after is not just a buzzy thing. It's truly about airmen who have a name, who have families, who come from a place. I think it's easy to kind of lose yourself in like being just another cog, feeling like you're a cog in the wheel, especially at the tactical level, right? But also recognizing that these are humans that we're serving. Like these airmen are people also, and so it's making sure that we're equipping them to the best of our abilities. And we owe that to them.
It's easy to objectify, right? But when you put a name and a face, it's so important what we do.
Yes, ma'am. So we kind of talked a little bit previously about the different roles that you have had. And you mentioned some of the innovation, process improvement, whether that's theory of constraints or different methodologies. So I'm just curious over time how you have seen those different things evolve and what kind of role you see them playing in a near peer and peer threat in the future.
Yeah. So this question, when I read it, I was reminded of when I was an item manager. We instituted, I can't remember, I think it was Lean Six Sigma. And it was truly interesting because I think we carried it way to the nth degree, and to the point of, so the idea was, okay, if I'm an item manager and I have to go out on sick leave, or let's say I have a child and I go out on extended maternity leave or something, and somebody comes in to backfill me, it could be a military career broadener. When I went away to school for a year, I had a career broadener, military tech sergeant that came in and did my desk. And so the idea with this Lean Six Sigma was everything, the desk should be the same. So we went to the level of labeling, literally labeling where the stapler should go on a desk, labeling the drawers to say this is where these records are, which that's a little bit more understandable, but where the staple, I mean, we carried it to the nth degree. So do not recommend that. That's just a little bit of a nice and right hand, thinking of like left and right-handed people too, being like.
And I am a lefty, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And so mine was probably all backwards for someone more, right? But anyway,
but not recommending that we repeat that. But I will tell you, I've watched what the Tesseract team has done with theory of constraints. And I know that at the depots, they have instituted Art of the Possible, and they have seen some incredible results, as we have with our theory of constraints. And what I think is so incredible about what the Tesseract and the other teams, whether it's working with Gold Rat or the organic side, is slingshots, right? So that's is a lot of times you'll go to a base and you'll do a theory of constraints initiative or effort. And then you say, okay, we've done this. We found these efficiencies. We're going to implement those changes to our processes. And then you go to another base and you're like, oh, wait, you start to see some of the same things. And one of the things, the huge benefits I see from the Tesseract team is, and I know that you guys have been doing a lot of data analysis with your data rats and those folks to say, hey, when we start the data collection for a new project and we start to see some of the same trends, we're learning. We're learning more and more as we go, and we can say, oh, wait, it's as simple as instituting this change or this, and we learn. And so these types of lean and continuous improvement processes make us better. And then, so I know that we've had, even in our front office in the execs, we've had people go on and take command, and they're familiar with the Tesseract team and the theory of constraints. And so you start to see basically a preaching of the gospel, if you will, of, hey, this is, maybe you should take a look at doing a type of a theory of constraints initiative to see where you can gain some efficiencies and effectiveness in your processes. So I think you should always strive to get better, and we can always do better. I mean, I think everybody comes to work and they come to do a good job, but over time, sometimes we get extra steps in processes, and it's like, does that really add any value? So looking at how we can get better across is, it's always important. So I don't think there should ever be a time when we're not trying to strive for continuous process improvement, and in our personal lives and in our professional lives.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. I think that's the fifth step of the TOC methodology, is not to let momentum be the constraint, and to go back and continue to look at our systems on a continuous basis so that we are always chasing, the next thing down the line. And partially because sometimes the constraints will change within an organization as organizations evolve over time as well. But it's good to have fresh eyes and to continue to just come back and look from an unbiased perspective at our own systems.
Because sometimes that saying, you can't see the forest for the trees, really is true. And then when you go that fresh set of eyes, you're like, I didn't even see that. We all have blind spots, right?
Yes, ma'am. You made me think the case studies too that we work on as a team, that those are a huge resource for a lot of what you just said there, ma'am. And being able to say, well, I'm working in an organization that I see conceived by this repository has done a theory of constraints event. And so maybe there's some things here that I can look to apply. And maybe this will help peel back the onion a little bit of like, oh, this vicious cycle this case study is talking about, well, this actually sounds very similar to like what I live in. And maybe there's some tools now that I can take without ever having to have, contracted support or organic TOC facilitators come in. You can pick that up and empower the airmen to take that and then run with it.
The library of lessons learned. And
one of the greatest overlaps I think I see with theory of constraints that I didn't really find until I got to the Tesseract team was the overlap with mission command, right? Is that through utilizing the theory of constraints, you really narrowed down on what your organization's goal is, right? And if every airman in an organization, understands the goal of the organization, they don't need direct leadership every step of the way, right? They can lead themselves and their peers in combat or sortie generation or whatever their mission is, right? To make the mission happen. And I think that's what, one of the biggest things I've seen from theory of constraints implementation. It's just that everybody in that organization really understands what they're striving for, right? That's huge.
What's the focused goal? And then you're all rowing in the same direction.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we talked a lot about about airmen, about innovation, what airmen out there are capable of, right? We've seen some great projects come out of airmen's minds out there as they're working on aircraft late at night, and then they're thinking, how can I do better next time to make sure I don't have to stay late, or things like that, right? How can I make this better? And so you first came into the logistics community at Warner Robins. Now as the Deputy Director of Logistics at the Pentagon. How do you strive to leverage the Air Force's organic capability to drive innovation across logistics and maintenance? Are there particular areas where you see the greatest opportunity to advance the mission with innovation?
Yeah, so I mentioned that I was the portfolio manager at AFMC for the logistics IT portfolio. And so I have a strong, background in the log IT space. So one of the things that when I first got here, and I actually worked this with the Tesseract team, they were working on a capability that came out of the F-35 and the F-22 program, and it's had multiple names, but right now the name is Torque, and it's really a fleet scheduling capability. And it was something that I believe was set up on a Kessel run. It was during the time when there was a lot of innovation going on, whether it was Best Pin at PEO Best and at Gunter under Mr. Burse's organization, or Kessel Run up in Massachusetts, up in the Boston area. And so the Tesseract team came to me, and I believe at the time I actually was the tech director at the time, and they said, "Man, they're getting ready to turn off the lights on this. F-35 has decided they want to go a different direction. Same with F-22." And so we looked at it from a leadership perspective. And at the time, I think we had probably maybe 5,000 users, maybe a little less than 5,000 users. But we knew it was a capability that would make our airmen's lives easier and better for fleet scheduling. And we didn't have any type of capability that would do that. So at the time, the leadership said, "Okay, we're gonna take this, and we're gonna throw some seed money at it, and we're going to try to grow this." Well, I also knew that we had our software engineering groups out at the ALCs. So what we did is we went and we met with the Hill software engineering group, and we started talking to them. MITRE was actually also a part of that because they had been working with some of that with a capability called Flash. And so we ended up partnering the Tesseract team and the SWEG group and the MITRE team, because they had like the algorithm, the smart folks that could do all of the modeling and that type of thing. And so we teamed them all together, and we were able to build a capability that is continuing to flourish. I want to say we might have 30,000 users now of Torque. And we've got an aircraft readiness machine initiative that General Miller and General King is their number one priority. And the ARM effort is going to rely heavily on Torque, and it's going to cause more capability to go into Torque. And so I think that the one lesson that I learned as that portfolio manager and in the log IT space, the more that we can bring internal and organic, or at least not get into a situation where we don't own anything going on in the black box, if you want to call it that, the better we will do for our airmen. Because I've seen so many times where we have partnered, and it's not, I'm not throwing darts or anything at our industry partners, because we need them absolutely. But I've seen us get to a point where we didn't have the organic capability or capacity to do something. And then we had one game in town, and the cost of the sustainment just kept going up and up. So being able to make smart decisions, and whether it's our organic people partnering with an industry partner and building that together, but at the end of the day, looking out for the American taxpayers' best interest and being fiduciarily responsible with how we're spending and what we're going after, I think is really critical and part of our role. So But I do think that in the log IT space, we've done a lot of modernization. We have a long way to go. We've gone from 400 plus systems down to about 130, but we want to get down to 20 or 30. And so, but in the meantime, we want to make sure that we're increasing the capability and that we're making it user friendly, and it's not a green screen with an MS-DOS prompt, right? That somebody can go in and touch a screen and it's just like your iPhone, or having apps on an iPhone to do your maintenance documentation or whatever the case may be. So hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I remember working with the Tesseract team from the field when Torque started kicking off, right? Well, that was an exciting time. Before I went back to the flight line for that stint, I had been outside of maintenance, developing software actually for about a year and a half on the ops side. I was working on an application called Pupboard, if you've heard of it, but for message scheduling. Me and about 4 other folks took a stint and left maintenance and ops, and it was great. Yeah, I was a UI UX designer learning all about how
user interface works and the user experience.
Exactly. How to conduct interviews, how to do research, which I guess helped me out for this. And so
you just never know where you're going to end up.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. But it was always fun. And that was an exciting time because there were a lot of organic capabilities, right, that were popping up and just being sustained. The organizations saw how valuable it was when an airman finds a problem, solves the problem, and then turns it into something that the enterprise can take advantage of, right, to solve the enterprise's problem. And that's just a huge capability that I don't know if we can ever get rid of. And I haven't seen the days where we haven't had it, right? I guess I haven't been in the Air Force long enough, and I'm sure cycles happen. But hopefully I never see that.
I may be biased, but I think our airmen are the best of the best, and they're brave. And they have, so we, as you grow in your career and you become senior leader and go on and do great things, don't forget that they have some great ideas, and they're the ones that are closest to the problems, and always be open to listening to them, and because they're the best.
They're the best in knowing their problem, and so coming up with those solutions, but I think also making sure we leverage the people with special talents and skills that are in the field.
Right.
I remember having a friend when Torque was being developed. She worked with Kessel Run. She was a cyber officer who had a lot of coding background. It wasn't necessarily her normal Air Force job, but she was able to go and to work with them remotely, developing that capability as a coder, which was a very unique talent that she had. But we also have a lot of airmen out there who are very much would like to use those skills. And
when you're passionate about something,
you're just going to run 1,000,000 miles an hour at it.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and you talked a little bit about the balance between the organic capability and the industrial base, and in utilizing both as necessary, right? The industrial base is very strong, and that's a fairly unique capability that the United States of America has, right, is a very, very strong industrial base. And we've proven that for well over 100 years, right?
Yes.
But sometimes the industrial base isn't on the flight line with you, right? They aren't on the front lines with you. And sometimes, airmen need to solve problems when the problem arises. And as these organic capabilities are teaching our airmen how to do that, right? How to be capable when there's no other option. The only option is that they solve the problem on the spot. So
exactly.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, ma'am. Well, kind of moving on to some of our maybe more challenging questions here at the end. We love to kind of do these rapid fire questions. So to kick it off, do you have a favorite musical instrument?
It's a tie between a piano and a saxophone.
Okay. Do you play any instrument?
Took 5 years of piano lessons, but I wouldn't say that I play. I did more singing back in the day.
Okay.
But that's been years too. So,
if you had to pick iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
And Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Trek, because my husband is a huge Star Trek fan. Lover, so yeah.
So you're going on vacation with your family. Where are you going?
So that's a tough one because I love the beach. But I also love going to places I've never been. I love Europe and the Mediterranean and different places. So it'd be a toss-up. So I'm going to depends on how much money I have. Because I can go to a beach on the Mediterranean. So it just depends on how much you give me for a budget.
I absolutely align with that. It came from Hickam to Fort here, and I miss the beach every day.
Like my favorite place. If it wasn't, I'm from the East Coast. And if it wasn't for all my family being on the East Coast, I would retire in Hawaii. I don't care how expensive it is. I love that.
I couldn't agree more. If I could fly back at ease whenever I wanted to, I would live.
Just teleportation needs to be invented.
Don't do it justice. I've noticed that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Your favorite movie is?
Probably, it's a toss-up again between probably Pretty Woman, and there's also an old movie called Beaches that I really liked. So that was a good one. Yeah. Yeah. But anything that's got a sappy love story will tear your heart out of it.
I just took a note down. I'll have to watch it. I haven't seen it. And then what would you say your superpower is?
Probably relationship building. And I focused on that over my career because I think it's so important. You know, the relationships that you build. I've been in rooms with some crazy smart people, and you can be wicked, as we say in Maine, smart, right? You can be that smartest person in the room, but if you can't build relationships, because nothing that we do we do by ourselves. Nothing. And you know that, especially in this building. So if you can build relationships and you foster those relationships, it's just amazing what you can accomplish. You don't have to be the smartest, because I'm never the smartest person in any room. So I had to rely on that. So I guess if I was going to pick something, that would be it.
And then we always like to close out with this question. So if you can leave behind one piece of advice or lasting insight for airmen in the field, what would it be?
A couple of things. As we talked about, our job is so important, and it's truly national defense, right? And our airmen get that done every day. And so giving your best, always giving your best. But when you should always work hard, right? But we are all human, and giving yourself grace. I know that we're hardest on ourselves. And so taking care of, and we're very passionate about it, but there are going to be times when we fall short. And sometimes it's not even through our own, something that we've done. We've done everything we could do, but it's just the nature of the beast and being in a bureaucracy, whatever the case may be. But realizing that you did your best, and don't be, another day is going to come, and there's another day to fight. And so taking care of yourself and showing yourself the grace, because if you're not taking care of yourself, it's hard for you. It's cliche. You can't take care of others. But what I will end with here is, I was in a class, and in some of these classes that we all go to, this happened to be a senior leader class, but we all have classes we go to where they bring in senior leader mentors. And there was a retired general, I want to say his name was Speedy Martin. He went by Speedy Martin. I think his name was Speedy. Yeah, that was probably his call sign, right? And he said something that stuck with me. And he said when he would get ready to go out the door in the morning, he had a mirror on the wall right next to his front door, whatever door he went out, my back door, his door. And he would look in the mirror and he would say, I would ask myself this every morning, am I worthy? Because he realized the importance of what we do, and the importance of the airmen, and the importance of being leaders that take care of them the way that they deserve to be taken care of. Because we all know airmen could go, and any number of airmen, all of our airmen could go out on the outside and probably make twice the money that they make on a day-to-day basis, but they choose to serve. And because they're committed and they're dedicated and they're patriotic, whatever the reason is for serving. And as leaders and as people and we start leading at a very young age in the Air Force. We start at on the enlisted side, you could be, they don't have buck sergeants anymore, but a staff sergeant or a senior airman even, and have people under you and people that are counting on you. And so keeping things in perspective and understanding I need to be worthy of the responsibility. It's an awesome responsibility that we have. And so tying it back to my current role, I'm so thankful and so grateful for the opportunity to have some small, it's not a big, I haven't had a huge part necessarily in the individual airmen's lives, but in this role with 200,000 plus loggies, being able to impact that in some small way and being worthy of being that senior civilian in this role it's my greatest honor. And so I would just ask that as you go on and you lead more and more people, just remember that to stay focused on that and am I worthy, and making sure that we're taking care and we're doing the right thing by our teams, I think is probably what I would leave with you.
Copy that. Yeah, great words of wisdom from you, man. We more than appreciate it. That's probably one of my favorite parts of every podcast is the wisdom you can leave with us at the end there, right? That's extremely important and notes that make sure that I close hold forever, because those are, if I wish I could go back in my past and put up all the notes that senior leaders like yourselves have told me, to put it on a poster by my back door, right, to remind me over and over again. But no, that's great.
It's easy because you're so busy and you get caught up in things, and especially in this building, right? We're so busy, but keeping the priorities, keeping the main thing, right, is so important. I would just genuinely appreciate you giving me the opportunity and for wanting to hear what I have to say. So, when you come up, and we can leave this on or not, but when you come up from like a GS5 all the way up to being an SCS, you're like, he really wants to hear say, because you're still kind of back there, when you look at you, like you're still kind of back there as a senior airman or whatever the case may be. And so it's really cool it's kind of like a full circle moment.
You. Well, it's been great chatting with you today. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
And with that, we close not just another episode, but a chapter, as today marks Chloe's final show as our co-host, as she steps away to begin her greatest adventure yet, motherhood. Chloe, your insight, humor, and energy have shaped this podcast and inspired so many. It's been an honor to share this space with you, and from all of us here at Tesseract and everyone who's tuned in, thank you. We wish you and your growing family nothing but love, health, and joy. And until next time, stay inspired, stay innovative, and take care. Any references to trademarked, copyrighted, or protected products or services, such as books, movies, or businesses, are used here for the limited purposes of educational and professional development of Air Force Airmen. If you have any questions, please contact us at www.tesseract.af.mil.